What's going on?
How's it going?
Good, man. How's things?
Things are good. Busier than I thought I would be a year ago.
I keep track of your Instagram, and there's always something going on with a new project you got going on, which is pretty cool. We
Yes.
can talk more about that. But I'm like that, and it looks really cool. So we'll talk more about that
Yeah.
in a bit. But in general, you seem very busy at the moment. For
Mhm.
people who don't know who you are,
Yeah.
maybe for the five people in the analytics space who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
Absolutely. My name is Alex Freberg, better known as Alex The Analyst on YouTube. That's really my only claim to fame, is my YouTube channel where I talk all about data analytics. I have lots of tutorials on SQL, Excel, Tableau, Python, pandas, and other things I'm sure that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But lots of free videos. And I talk a lot on LinkedIn about the job market and data as a whole. And I'm a family man, so I have a wife, I have 3 kids, and I quit my job in December of. I was an analytics manager at a Fortune 10 company. I quit my job in December of 2022, so it's been a little over a year now,
Nice.
to start my own consulting business, which I do now, as well as some other things. But that's a quick introduction of who I am.
It's a quick introduction to a guy who's actually done a lot. You have a huge presence, but it wasn't always this way. I imagine you didn't start out with a massive YouTube channel when you were born, and you didn't start out with a social media popularity.
Definitely
Walk me through the early days of Alex the Analyst. Like why did you start a YouTube channel?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, because I initially had a YouTube channel before Alex the Analyst called The Berg Source. It's still out there. You can still go and find it. I reviewed watches, and I love watches. I'm wearing one right now, and I have a good collection.
What kind of watch are you wearing for the audience?
This is a G-Shock. So
okay, it's a good watch.
Yeah, classic G-Shock, and I wear it all the time. But I have a good collection of watches, and I had this itch to start recording something, and so that's what I decided to come up with, and I just started on my phone, and it failed pretty miserably. I think I got to maybe I think now it has 800 subscribers, maybe 1,000 subscribers, but I haven't posted in 4 years. But it didn't do well, and I was thinking, I'm really getting at that time I was really getting into my career as a data analyst. I was really enjoying it, and I was having this eureka moment with Python, where I was really starting to understand it, build really cool stuff, and I was going to start a Python channel. Only Python. Is going to be Python with Alex. That was the name I had come up with. But then I was thinking longevity. I was like, a year from now, I don't know if I'm going to have enough content to only do Python stuff. And so I was like, well, I'm a data analyst, so maybe I'll do it on data analytics. And so it started really slowly. I started in 2020, exactly 4 years ago from 2 days ago. So it's been almost exactly 4 years. Starting out, I was 2 years into my career as a data analyst. I would still consider myself beginner mid-level, but I had a real passion for helping people. And, I was doing that in my job. I was learning a lot, but then I was also, we had a new analyst come on where I was kind of helping him understand our databases and some, SQL and stuff like that. And I was like, I really love to do this for a lot of people out there, or, out in the world, because when I was first starting out, there weren't a ton of YouTubers who talked about data analytics. And so I really had to search for a lot of good resources. And so I was thinking, maybe I could be a resource for 1 or 2 people out there to help them, understand what being a data analyst is like. And so I just started making videos. I started using an iPhone 6S.
Wow, that's old school.
Old school. And I kept that phone up until I got an iPhone 8. And I had that until last year. So I hold on to my technology quite a bit. But I started making videos and started doing, stuff on the computer, capturing, doing SQL stuff on my computer. So capturing my screen and just recording. And I really fell in love with it. I just loved making them. And I didn't have almost any following or anything for probably 8 months. I had 0 views. And I probably put out 50 videos in those 8 months. It was a lot of videos, but no one was watching them. But I had a few, I started getting some traction in like late 2020. And by the end of 2020, I think I had like 1,000 subscribers. And so after 1 year is 1,000, then the next year was like huge. 2021 was a big, big jumping point. I think probably due to, I think that was when the pandemic hit. And people were like, I need to find a job to work remote. And a lot of people came to like the tech field. And that's when my channel really took off. I think by the end of 2022, I was at like 130,000. And then by the end of 2023, it was like 400. And now I'm sitting at like 650 in 2024. So it's been a huge growth. And I think if I could go back, I don't think I could replicate it again. It was very natural, very much a passion of just like, I really enjoy making the videos. And so, but I also think there was a bit of luck there too, as well.
Do you think it was due to the timing of everything and just people being stuck at home watching videos, or do you think it was something else? Because I think your content's really good too.
Thank you.
I think you're selling yourself a bit short if it was only the time period.
Well, I don't want to sell myself short. I really do try to make really valuable, easy to consume content that helps people learn it well. But I do think there was a certain percentage of luck that contributed.
Sure.
Behind the scenes, although I will, to give myself some credit, even during those 8 months, I was hustling. Like I was on all the forums, posting my videos. I was reaching out to other creators. I was really trying because I really liked it. But I do think there was that time period, a lot more people were at home thinking about career changes. They were like, I got laid off from this job. I want to do something I can work at home. I don't want to go back into an office. So a lot of people were trying to kind of gravitating towards data science really heavily, as well as data analytics, data engineering, those kind of bigger, more popular ones that people might be able to transition into. And data analytics was a really, I think, an entry level, a nice beginner friendly thing to learn for a lot of people. And at that time, I do think that there was a big lack of data analytics content creators. Now you go on, I've searched, a couple months ago, I was just, see who's out there. There's a ton of creators in the analytics space, a lot of them. But back in the day, 4 years ago, there was a handful. There was maybe 5 to 10 good ones. Now I know there's probably like 50 good ones. And so it's much more competitive now to get views and get traction on your channel and really make a name for yourself, because there's so many other people in the space. But yeah, I think it was like a good balance of really working hard, good timing, and a little bit of luck all into one.
Walk me through the content part. When you first started, you said you were an iPhone 6, which is a remarkably great phone, and pretty, by today's standards. I mean, iPhone 14, 15, I mean, the camera's pretty bad comparatively, but it gets the job done, right? Walk me through the production quality and how you, I guess, learned to create content. Because imagine starting off with your iPhone. What were your early videos like, and how did you work through a process of content creation?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I would say fairly bad quality. You can still go back. You just go on my videos, go to the very first one. It's still there. Is like the top 3 skills for a data analyst. And it was shot in my kitchen in Plano, Texas. And I had this little lighting equipment that I bought for like $40 on Amazon, bought this tripod on Amazon, or no, I stacked it on books. I stacked it on some books, and
oh, nice.
I recorded myself, and I edited it on my phone and then posted it to YouTube. And so it was really, really low quality. But the content was still the content was good. I also had eventually bought a lavalier mic so that I could have better quality audio. But the progression really was, when I first started out, for the first probably year, that first full year, it was either shot on my iPhone 6 or on my laptop, doing screen recordings and then using my webcam for my face. And so really low quality, but again, the content was good. Once I started seeing some traction in 2021, where I was like, oh, I have 10,000 subscribers. Like, this is insane. I invested in a Canon SL3. which was a huge step up, but also a huge learning curve.
Hmm.
And then I bought a Yeti mic. And so that I used for over 2 years until recently when I have, a Canon 90D. I have a Rode mic above my head. I have a different Rode mic for closer, better audio when I'm doing tutorials. I have a better lighting system. I have a nice background. That all happened over 4 years. Like that was
Yep.
a long process to get here. But I started out with, I would say, investing that first full year. I only invested maybe $50, and then the next year maybe $400, and then this year maybe or in the past 2 years maybe like $1,000. So I'm
Hmm.
a very low budget production over here.
That's really cool, though. I think what I see some YouTubers do is like they have really good production quality
Mhm.
and probably a lot of fancy equipment, but the content itself, I would say, is pretty mixed. Like the quality of like the substance, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think makes like really good substantive content for analytics?
Yeah, so there's two. I kind of put my content in two buckets, and I usually fall in these two buckets with almost all my content. One bucket is tutorials. So tutorials are a huge area where anybody can come in and make a tutorial, but I try to make it really relatable, and so I try to incorporate some humor, some I have a whole series of sequel where it's all The Office related, and I love that show. I have watched it practically like half my life, and it just was a big part of my like humor style and what I watched when I was growing up. So I wanted to incorporate that, and so I try to make it really fun, fun tutorials. And then
Mhm.
on the other side, I have more like the other bucket besides tutorials is kind of like how to break in, like what's the life and how
Mm.
to break into the space. That's like I would say my other huge bucket of videos, and I really tried to brainstorm like, especially when I was making content in the past, like how did I make it? Because if you look at my history, my educational history, my work history, there's no reason I should be where I am today. Like there's absolutely no reason. And so I was like, I'm trying to like synthesize that magic, that luck, whatever it was, into actionable steps that other people out there can take. And so I really had to like go back in and like process exactly what happened and how I did it. And so I take those steps and I write everything down and I kind of create a framework for a video. And then I don't do an outline of like I don't script it. I just here's my 4 things I want to cover and I just go. And then I
That's cool.
edit it at the end and I finish it up. And I do all my own editing. I still am by far the lowest budget person of any YouTuber that I know. Like, all the, Kenji and Luke
Yep.
and Tina, all of them, their budgets are probably like 100 times mine. But I still use the same equipment or very low, not low budget, but like very simple equipment, very simple editing tools. And so I don't know if I would even change it now if I wanted to, because I think people like that about my channel. It's very simple, very, very easy to consume.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, though. The nature of just, I think, having a good setup and just knowing how you're going to make your content. I know Andrew Ng, for example, right? Like his courses on Coursera record on nothing more than a cheap Brio camera,
Yeah,
right? And these
that's
are
all
some
you
of the most
need.
popular data courses in the world, and so it's remarkable what you can get done with just, I think, really substantive stuff. Like his earlier courses, actually, I think the first machine learning course. I mean, that's terrible quality, actually, but it's
Yeah,
still one of the most popular courses of all time. But so I think it
yeah.
goes to your point. It's like you spend all the money you want on good equipment, but it's about delivery and substance. With your content too, do you find like, because you mentioned there's kind of two forms of it. There's um, uh, maybe the skills part, but then there's jobs part. Like, what do you find that there's a mix that, or which one does better, or do they kind of perform the same?
I've looked at it really in depth because I about 2 years ago when I started taking it like pretty seriously, I was like, hey, this is really doing something. So I really should like really focus in. And I kind of already was, but there's a light switch. When I really started focusing in on it, I kind of started to look at the videos and, just general, very simple analysis. Just what's doing well, what's not performing well. What I found is my tutorials individually perform very poorly. They'll
Mm,
get 5 to 10,000 views, right? Like if I like today, I'm doing a MySQL tutorial, beginner, intermediate, advanced. it performs very poorly on an individual lesson basis. Each video is only getting maybe 5,000 views on the first couple days, which is very low for my channel. Then once I complete the whole beginner series and I package it and I release it, then it performs well. So it's a delayed, kind of a delayed effect. Then when I complete the intermediate and advanced, and I package that all into here's beginner, intermediate, and advanced, then it does even better. So that one is a slow burn. Then I have my like top 5 skills to learn in 2024 for data analysts. Those hit immediately. I'll get an initial wave of 50,000. Maybe if on a good, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it might hit 100,000. That's a good video. But then some of those will simmer out, and they'll in 3-4 months it's 125,000, 140.
Yeah.
So whereas the MySQL one over the longevity will perform better. And so I just kind of gravitated naturally towards the tutorial side for the most part, because I love making them. I like building projects. I like building the content. It's just all super fun. And so I think I naturally more gravitate towards the tutorials because I don't know, there's just something that is really satisfying about making them that I really have come to love, and I just keep doing it.
Is it because of the teaching aspect, or what do you like about that versus the top skills in 2024 kind of videos?
It's a teaching thing. My whole family is a bunch of teachers, and so I come from a teaching background. So I think that there's like a gene in there a little bit, but also when I something that's really driven me really hard, especially early on, was when I would get comments saying, I didn't understand that concept until you showed me how to do it. Like I watched tutorial after tutorial. I couldn't understand until you showed me. There's something that's like, I just get a lot of joy and just an extreme sense of like accomplishment from that.
That's cool.
And so now that was, 4 years ago when I was doing that, it was like one person or 2 people. Now when I do it, I get a lot of people, and I get a huge sense of like, just, I don't know what the word is, gratification or whatever. I don't know what the word is, but I just feel good about teaching something that maybe they would have had to spend money on, or that they didn't understand. Or, it just feels good. Whereas the other ones are more like they're generalized. And so it's not like I'm really teaching them. I'm just kind of informing them, which other people could do. And so I think that's why I tend to gravitate toward, though. I think it's more satisfying.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I create content too. Probably I don't do that much video. I might get into it this year, but I know what you mean. I can write books and do courses and stuff, and I feel like that's more of where I find a lot of joy too. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to come up with like data engineering is awesome, and here's what you need to know to get a job kind of stuff. Like I don't know. It just doesn't. It's because those things always shift.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just don't have the attention span to keep up on it, I guess. It's hard. So
I think that's very fair.
There's a lot to know, because otherwise you constantly have to chase. I mean, you're more like a news reporter in some ways, right? You have to constantly chase the new scoop. So,
yeah, and I do feel that way sometimes, because I usually do like how to become a data analyst in 2022, in 2023, in 2024. So I kind of repurpose it, but there is a lot of the same things. It's just then there's something slightly different, and that's why I don't do a lot of those videos. Although a lot of other YouTubers, that's like their bread and butter. That's their main thing they do.
Good at.
Yeah,
well, and it probably works too, though. It funnels people to you, then they're like, oh, and he's also got some cool tutorials, so check that out. And
that's true.
And what's this weird watch channel that he has over here? That's weird.
That is very true. That like other creators will point to my channel and say you can learn it for free over here. So they don't have to make it if they don't want to, but they can say, hey, you need to learn SQL, you need to learn Python, you need to learn, here's a free place to learn it. Who's already done it? So yeah, I think that is there's definitely something to that.
Yeah. And walk me through this though, right? So you have consulting, you have YouTube, which takes a lot of time. Then you have this other tool, which we'll be talking about in a second. But I mean, monetization wise, I'm sure the temptation might be there to say, well, these tutorials, I could obviously sell this in the course and probably make good money at it. I mean, why give everything away?
Well, like you said, I do now have actual courses that people can buy. But that just was like 3 months ago. So,
Okay.
I'm going to touch on that, and then I'm going to go back to
Yeah.
what your real question is. I did launch a platform called analystbuilder.com where people can go and take my full courses. And they, of course, go more in depth, and there's other pieces to the platform. If we want to talk about it later, we can. And it's a super amazing, unique platform. But when I was first starting out, I never sold anything until 3 months ago. And the only reason I feel comfortable even selling anything is because I feel like the value is an incredible value for what you're getting. And so I didn't want to charge people before because I wanted it to be free. When I first was starting out, I don't want to say broke, but I was about as broke as you can be without being broke. Like, I could afford my rent and I could afford groceries. And then my parents paid my phone bill and my insurance because I couldn't afford that. So I didn't have any money. So I did all this learning online for free in like the open source community. And once I did start getting some money, I spent it on like a few Udemy courses, a few Coursera courses. But I wanted to give back. I really am a huge believer in the open source community. I'm a huge believer in teaching the next generation of analysts and teaching the next generation so they don't have to spend a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I didn't withhold a lot on my YouTube channel. There's so much content there for free because I want there to be a lot of free content. I want, and I have a large international audience in Africa, in a lot of Europe, in South America, that it's expensive to buy, things like something that's $10, 10 US dollars. That's really expensive for them. And so I have a huge population in those areas that are like really appreciative that I have this content for free instead of having a paywall behind it. And so all my YouTube stuff will always be free, and I'm going to always keep creating more content. And then, to kind of be beside that, then I have my courses now that you can do. But again, I feel like there's such a good value that I don't feel, I'm like, if you have extra money and you want to do that, go for it. If not, do my free data analyst bootcamp. Like, it's an insane amount of value for free. So there's a good balance there. It's just, that's why I hadn't done it in the past. I didn't feel like there was enough value there until recently.
Mm. When did you know? Right? Because I mean, building a platform is a lot of investment and a lot of time and resources.
Yeah.
And since you're a really cheap guy, I mean, I'm just kidding.
But I really am. I did not grow up wealthy. So I've always been extremely budget minded.
That's cool.
Like, even my equipment now, like, I could afford better things, but I don't because I don't need it. If I needed it, I would do it, but I don't need it. So
that's awesome.
The platform itself, it took over a year to build. Wow. I hired a team to build it. It took a whole year. Engineering wise, and it is extremely complicated. In fact, just today, I have my co-founder / guy who helped me create it. I flew him in, so we just recorded some videos on exactly the architecture that we did. It's extremely complex for me, but also for him, and he's built some really complicated things. So it's a really tough thing, and so it took a long time. But I have a voice in the data analyst community, and I also use a lot of products, a lot of software, a lot of websites, and I've used a lot of them. And I was like, there's a gap that's not being filled. And I don't want to get into any super specifics, but I went around to some of these companies and I was like, hey, I have this vision. Would you want to do that with me? And, they said no. And I was like, I totally get it, because it's not part of your business decision, or, that's not where you want to take your company. It didn't bother me at all, but I was like, there's still the gap. So I was like, I'm going to build it. I know it's going to be an investment. I know it's going to take a long time, but I was like, this is the gap between just a course platform and a coding platform. And I merged them into one. And then, I also think that people really like my teaching style. And so I was like, if I created a really high in-depth quality content people would really gravitate to that. And so I priced it, I would consider very affordable.
Hmm.
And so, you can go on and you can go to another platform and you might spend, $300 in 1 year on there. Well, you'll never spend more than that on my platform ever. And you can buy the lifetime and you can have it forever. And so I just, every piece had to be there for me. It was the gap in the market. There was a certain price point that I was trying to target. And I think that people like how I teach. And so all those things combined is why I decided to go and build it. Instead of just like, putting a course on Udemy, which I could have done 2 years ago.
Right.
Um, or Coursera wanted me to do a course and some projects and all these different things, and I was like, that's just not really what I want to do. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
That's really interesting though, because you've had a lot of opportunities, right? And I would say you have a lot of leverage too, just given the YouTube channel you have and the
Yeah.
presence. Walk me through that decision process. So why did you turn down like the bigger platforms? I mean, it seems like the obvious thing to do would be like get in front of all that audience.
Right.
What
Yeah,
was that thought process?
and you're 100% right. And I still, even to this day, daily get emails for people who want me to create books and courses and
Mm,
do all sponsorships, and I say no to 99% of them. Um, the first thing is that I have an extreme sense of responsibility to my audience. I The very last thing that I would ever want to do is feel like I'm taking advantage of them.
mm,
And I think my audience can feel that, because whenever I take a sponsor on, the sponsor is like, I think, a high quality sponsor. It's like really relevant to my audience. Um, and so when people would come to me, and I get asked to do sponsors every day. Again, I take maybe 1 out of 1,000 that I get emails from. It's an exceptionally low rate. Whereas I could be making a lot of money, probably an extra like 10,000 a month from sponsors or more. I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. So I feel an extreme amount of responsibility to my audience to really give them what I think will benefit them. And so when companies would come to me, and Udemy, I've worked with Udemy, they've been a sponsor in the past. They came to me and said, "Hey, let's create a course together." And I initially was like, "Okay, maybe." But I wanted my content and something someone would pay for to be of higher quality than just another video that's everyone else is doing. And
right.
so that's why on my platform, it's integrated. You learn through the courses, but then you also have the integrated, I guess you could call it an IDE, but a coding platform. So you can code while you do it. And there's practice questions, and then there's videos to show you how to do it and why it's important. And it just, that to me, that's what I wanted. And that's why I went to these other companies and I was like, "Hey, here's my idea. And you do this 50% of it. Let's add on the other 50%." And I would then be part of this and I would help promote it. And I thought that was a good value proposition, like you were saying. But that's not what they wanted to do with their company. And I fully
Mm,
respected that.
yep.
And so then, after getting shot down a few times, I was like, you know what? I'm going to build it myself. And I've never, ever, ever done anything like that. It was completely new to me. Um, but, you know, I think now, looking back, it was the best decision, because now Analyst Builder we have, you know, 20,000 users in 3 months.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, I mean, and the community is growing rapidly. We're getting like 400 people a day coming in.
Wow.
And it's and that's just in a 3 month span. So like, this is like the initial launch with the initial content, initial things, and all the feedback we're getting is that it's just, they're really happy that I didn't just make a Udemy one. And so
Hmm.
I'm trying to like really push the boundaries. And we have, I told you I flew in, his name's Kasoon. I flew in Kasoon, and we have a whole game plan for 2024. And
So
I genuinely believe this platform is gonna be like the standard in 2025. Like, what we're building today is going to be what other companies are going to look at that have been around for 7-10 years, and going to be like, how are they beating us? And that's
mhm.
what I want. And so I feel like I'm doing something bigger than just myself. I'm doing something for the community, and that people can really benefit from, and at a really good cost.
It's really cool and really different. because you're playing the long game,
Yes.
right? I think in the content creator space, the temptation is to want to play the short game.
Yes, absolutely.
Why are you so weird?
Well, but you're not the first person to say that exact phrase. You're playing the long game,
Yeah,
because I there's other content creators who I may have mentioned or may not, who I may not have mentioned earlier, and I've said this is what I'm doing, and this was like a year ago, and they're like, huh, well, if it's successful, that's way better than what I've been doing, because
yeah,
I've been partnering with these people making courses and I get like a 20% cut. Or I just make these videos and it's a one-time payment, it's not a recurring thing. And so they're like, if you could get that to work, like, one, you get to control everything and be in charge, and that's a amazing feeling and thing to do. But two, you get to keep the money, and that's like
yeah.
really rare in the content space. Really rare. I would say almost no other person that I know in the content space gets to keep 100%. So of course I pay other people on the team, but
Hmm.
I get to control that stuff. And so when I started my YouTube channel, again, I had a longer vision. I was like, in 3 years, I'll have all this content built up and then it'll do well. I kind of
Yeah,
have that vision. And so my mindset has always been in the long term. Because you're right, I definitely could have accepted certain partnerships or sponsors or deals with courses and whatnot. And in the short term, you're right, it would have made more money, a lot more money. I would probably have a nicer home than I have now, or a nicer car, or whatever you want to say. But I turned
yeah.
almost all of it down completely to pursue this, because I felt like this was more helpful to my audience, which again, I want the best for them because
Hmm.
I've been in their shoes. And so I think this will be the future of like Alex the Analyst. This will be kind of like my legacy. It's like Alex built that and it's so good. It's such a good price. And this will be like the standard in a few years. That's kind of like my thought process.
That's really cool. I guess where do you see this going then? Because it seems like you're building a platform for the future of analytics education. I mean,
Yeah.
what are let me back up and ask, what do you think the problems are today that need to be addressed?
In the platform, or like in the other, with other, how other companies
Maybe
do
as it
things?
relates to the platform or how other people are teaching it right now. Like why take a different approach?
Yeah. So I'll cover two. I'll cover both of them. The first thing is like how other platforms do it, which that's how I learned. I learned through courses, a
Yeah.
lot of it through courses. The issue with me, for me, was when I was learning, I would encounter an issue and there was no one there to kind of walk me through the issue. I had to figure it out on my own. A lot of Googling, a lot of figuring out, which, builds some, it builds some skills there. But if I couldn't figure it out, I sometimes would get stuck for like a month. Whereas I feel like with my platform, I show people the mistakes and then I walk through how to fix it. And I'm not afraid to tell people, oops, I made a mistake. And, you're going to encounter this issue in the real world because it
Yeah.
happens. But here's how you fix this mistake. Here's how you fix this error. And on my YouTube channel, people always gave me that feedback that that is what they needed. And so I really heard that and I incorporated that into my courses. And so that is one thing that I will say that I think really just content-wise differentiates us from others. Because everything else in other courses is polished, it's perfect. Like there's no mistakes, no issues, no errors being walked through. It's just like, here's exactly how you do it. And that is how you learn, but I wanted to go beyond that. The
Yeah.
other thing is, most platforms are one or the other. You have something like Leak Code that does the coding. Then you have another platform like Udemy does the courses. I wanted to incorporate both. So
Yeah.
in my courses, I have the video lesson or question. So you code in Python, and right now just SQL and Python. But then I also have a questions page where you can practice for technical interviews. In SQL and Python, it goes from easy all the way up to very hard. And again, as of right now, you have to go to two different platforms, and they're both really good. But you have two separate subscriptions, and it's not necessarily all data analytics specific.
Yeah.
So for data analysts, this is the best of both worlds, and it's catered towards just them. And so it's a very small niche that I'm targeting, whereas almost all the platforms are trying to target a very big niche, and they've done a very, like, these companies are extremely successful. I'm not saying they're not, because they're huge and they're massive and they're very successful. But I wanted to cater very much to my audience and not cater to, software engineers and data engineers and all these people. Like, my audience is my niche, and that's what I know
Yep.
best. And so I knew I could create better content for my niche than anybody else could, or I felt like I could. And I feel like, based on the feedback that I've gotten, that has been true.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta say, there's nothing like knowing who your audience is. It's an easy thing to say, but it's also, I think, incredibly hard to actually do, because you really have to pay attention and you have to let your ego sort of step aside to really listen to people. Like when you mentioned making mistakes, for example, right? I think that's something I think most content creators and most teachers even would try and scrub over and go back and re-edit out, but you don't do
Yeah.
that. I don't do that either, actually. I think for very much the same reason, because these are the things
Yeah.
you're going to see in the real world, and um, yeah, it's definitely admirable. Was there ever a temptation when you're starting out with content to make it really polished, and, like, I guess because there's a certain type of YouTube content that I think it's very archetypal of the or of what YouTube content looks like, or video
Right.
content, or course content. It's quick scene cuts, like, here's Alex over here, here's Alex over here, here's my keyboard, like, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I've seen a million
Yeah.
of these videos. So why
Yeah.
why listen to your audience? Why understand them?
It took a long time, but even before I had anybody watching my videos, um, I I've been in their shoes, and so I know what it's like to be first starting out. It's very scary. People don't like to say it's scary. I was extremely scared. I had no money, I had no job, I had no career, and jumping into a field I had no knowledge or experience of at all, I was very frightened that I was going to fail, that I was going to mess up. And I had just gotten married. I just had a kid, and I felt a huge weight of responsibility. And so, that literally, in that moment, I'm fully switching my career to something else.
Hmm.
And so I felt a huge weight of responsibility in that time. And so I feel like I have a really good insight into that's what a lot of people are feeling in this space.
Yep.
And so, if I'd only been an analyst for 2.5 years, or maybe 3 years at that time, when I started making videos, my very first video. So I still would consider myself like I was a beginner intermediate. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
a senior level. I wasn't a manager at that point. And so I wanted people to know that even I make mistakes. A guy making videos. Like, I just wanted people to feel safe and
Hmm.
feel like it's okay if I make mistakes, because it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Even though everyone online makes it look easy, like, it is so much harder than what it looks like online. And I didn't want to be another creator where it's like, I'm smart, you guys are dumb for not understanding it. I want it to be like, I understand it, but I make mistakes, and if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. That's super cool. Um, yeah, I mean, one of my friends, it's this one girl I mentor. She, I think, watched a lot of your videos early on, and
Yeah.
yeah. So how did you learn all this stuff? She's like, well, I watched videos. Like, it's like, who? Like Alex, the analyst. Like, oh, he's a good dude. So I mean, it's obviously making impact on people, right? So
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Um, how do you balance this against consulting? I mean, we didn't touch on that. Like, you still do consulting, or you
I do.
um I
Yeah, I
guess.
do. So when I
Yeah.
quit my job back in December of 2022, I did it because my consulting on the side, I was an analytics manager. I was getting paid well, and I liked it, but it wasn't like my passion. And on the side, for the past, even up until a year before I was doing the management stuff, I was taking projects on the side to make some extra money.
Yeah.
Um, and it was doing really well. I kind of had found this really neat niche of people who were finding me on my YouTube channel or LinkedIn and reaching out to me. And they were like, "Hey, Alex, you talk about this, and we're having this issue. Would you know how to solve it?"
Mm.
And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I could. So then I started like taking on small projects and small consulting gigs, and it just kind of snowballed. And so
Yeah.
at the time when I quit my job, I was making as much money as I was in my management job. So I was making the same amount, but I was working a tenth as much. And so I was like, wait a second. If I spend all my time doing consulting, I'd make way more money. And so that was kind of like the catalyst to be like, if I really focused in on the consulting stuff, I
Hmm.
could make a lot more money. So I quit my job. I started doing consulting stuff. That about a little before that, I had then started talking about Analyst Builder. We had started building it, but that was a long process. So I knew I
Hmm.
to afford to pay to build it and to afford my bills and all this stuff. I knew I needed to keep consulting.
Yep.
So I had many clients, a lot of tech startups, like really small tech startups who were trying to find product market fit. They were trying to find, how do we kind of, you know, get our niche, our foot in the door in certain markets. I was a manager for a while, so I got pitched a lot of products for our company, and so I was like, well, here's who you should be talking to in companies, not the CTO. Like that's not who you should be targeting. You need to target like the VP of this, or in this company this level. And people found that really valuable. A lot of these people were data engineers, software engineers who were building amazing products that solved a problem, but they were having a problem getting it into the market and making money from it, getting clients. And so that's where I kind of found a good niche in the consulting space where I would come in. I'd be like, okay, let's look at your product. And I would look at it. I'm like, okay, I get exactly what you do. I see the market. I see but here's your competitors and here's who they're targeting. But with my knowledge of kind of my background in this, I was like, let's try to target these people.
Hmm.
Let's try to get our foot in the door in that market. They're not targeting them. And then they would do it and they're like, whoa, we just got our first 10 clients. And I'm like, there you go. I'm like, now here's the next plan we have. And so I would kind of create almost like a game plan um, for their product.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big niche of mine in the consulting space. But I've also, I've done like internal videos for people. I've actually done data analysis where they hire me to analyze some data, or I have a really in-depth healthcare background. So some healthcare startups have asked
Interesting.
me to come on board and do some actual work. So hands-on work. So I've done a little bit of everything, and I still do it even to this day because it it is I really enjoy it. It is good income, and Analyst Builder is still very new, right? I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and only do that. Like I don't want to just like, because if something were to happen and I don't have a
Mhm.
backup, it wouldn't be good. Now, if in like a year or maybe by at the end of 2020, this year of 2024, if it's going exceptionally well, it's going really well, I might really significantly slow down or stop consulting for a while to see if I can put 100%, 110% into Analyst Builder. But I have scheduled my life and managed my time very well to where I can do YouTube, consulting, Analyst Builder, and take care of my family and spend a lot of time
Mhm.
with them at the same time. Um, and so I think I just am trying to juggle them all. And if I have the opportunity, I will go, lean more towards one or the other in the future if I want to.
That makes sense too. I mean, I always feel like consulting is one of these things where if you're feral, kind of on your own, like us, it's good to do. I think also because it keeps you close to the real world.
Very much so.
So, I mean, I think the tendency for people like you and I is to become educators, and certainly nothing wrong with that. I think the curse of being an educator is if you lean too much into that, you are very
Stop
disconnected
learning.
from what's happening. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's 100% true because I have felt like if I wasn't consulting, that I wouldn't be as connected into what's going on in like with AI because
mhm.
I get a lot of consulting now for companies that are like, how do we integrate AI into this? How do we use AI in this?
Interesting.
How is AI going to impact our business? And because I'm doing consulting, I have roots, so I get to hear a lot of people's thoughts and ideas and whatnot. If I wasn't, I wouldn't. I'd have to rely on everyone else's anecdotes and stories and what they believe. Whereas now I just specifically in the AI thing, like I have a really solid foundation of what I believe because of being a part of it instead of just like watching. And so the
Yeah.
same with data analytics, like I do believe that if I were to just fully stop and fully invest in only Analyst Builder, then, I might fall behind the curve a little bit. And I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, it gives you a chance to probably interact with employees as well and understand sort of what they're going through. Right. I'm sure that would
Yeah.
influence the type of content you make and for Analyst Builder as well. Because it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, because I think there's definitely two groups of people. There's the people who want to get into the field, but then there's the people who are in the field. And
Yes.
at some point, the people who want to get into the field, they become the people who are in the field, and then they get those, all that fun too. So
Absolutely.
the party never stops. Uh, what do you like to do in your spare time? I mean, we're Instagram friends too, so I think we have glimpses into each other's personal lives. But your Instagram's a bit different though. It's not your YouTube channel. So what do you?
Yeah, my Instagram I made that many years ago because I there was a time when I was getting very overwhelmed with just YouTube, where I was like, I want to be able to post content that's not only data analytics, but also like a little bit about my life, share a little bit about like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so when I travel or I go to an event or I make something or whatever, I can share it, or I can share, when I'm traveling for a trip or whatever it is, I can share so people can see kind of behind the scenes. Like I don't just make YouTube videos. I'm a real person too. I have a family and I got hobbies. But yeah, I like to, for like in my spare time, I play guitar. So like I have
Oh,
guitars
nice.
around me that you can't see. I love music. And yeah, I do. I mean, I will say, with everything that I have going on, my hobbies have kind of taken like a back seat. So
Yeah.
like, I would say right now, guitar is really one of the only hobbies that I do outside of those other things that I mentioned because it's right here. I can just grab it, play a little bit, put it back. Whereas I like to golf, but I haven't golfed in a long time.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, I really like. I used to be a huge gamer, so I was like Call of Duty, Halo, World of Warcraft, League of
Oh,
Legends.
nice.
Like I was a big gamer, and I
Did you
was
ever
in my
play?
gaming.
Did you ever play Call of Duty with Carly or Halo with Zach?
No, I
Okay.
haven't because I haven't gamed since college.
Oh, never
Because
mind then.
well, it maybe I gamed a little after college, but once I got married, it was essentially like I don't have time. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
I got kids, I got a wife, I at that time had a lot of responsibility to get a better job and transition, and
yeah,
that's when
yeah.
I transitioned to data analytics. And now I have so many different things I'm involved in. I just genuinely I don't have the time, and I don't really want to. I want to capitalize on the momentum I have. I don't want to slow down and be like, it's time for me. I
Right.
want it to be like, I do see this as a big responsibility to my family because my wife, she doesn't work. And so, she's a stay-at-home mom. And so, I have a lot of responsibility to my family. So I intentionally don't get to do my hobbies as much as I would like.
Yeah. Hey, you're a good man though. It's a that's a lot to juggle. So
It
yeah, like
is.
yeah, that is a lot. Plus, and how it is with kids and family and stuff. I
Yes.
mean, I travel a ton. I feel terrible about it, but that's
Yeah.
also part of my work now. So it's just
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
But you get to try. I saw on Instagram the other day, you traveling with your son.
Yeah, I take him places when I
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
Super
that's
cool.
always fun. Yeah, I figure it's a good opportunity to take him out and show him the broader world and have
Absolutely.
experiences they would otherwise wouldn't have. But like was a couple of days ago, I was in Vegas, and it's probably not going to bring my kid there because it's a bit of a junk show. So
That's smart. That's smart. Give him different culture, not not the
yeah,
Las Vegas culture.
I mean, took him there like last year for Christmas, and I don't know. There are definitely better places to take kids, I think. So it's a fun spot, but yeah, I mean, running. I mean, you and I are in the same boat, running businesses and raising a family and whatnot. It's definitely a fun adventure. Though I wouldn't trade it for the world at this point. I mean, I've
Yeah,
had plenty of opportunities to get jobs elsewhere, and I don't know. Personally, I like what I'm doing. I'm sure you do too. What you're
absolutely.
doing, and you're building something really cool. I mean, uh, it sounds like what, the Analyst Builder's got a ton of legs. I mean, I saw the, a lot of the videos and just the content about it on Instagram. That's how I came about it. Actually, I was like, this looks really
Yeah.
cool. It's like, is this like a new platform that he's like, just sort of subleasing or something, or like just like renting out? And I was like, no, you built this. It's pretty dang
Yeah.
cool, actually.
From scratch.
So, yeah,
From scratch. It was, I've learned in the past year, I've learned more about software engineering, data architecture than I did in working with, when I was a data analyst. I work with data engineers, data architects,
yeah,
software engineers. So I understood what they do, but having to build it, make design choices, make product choices, choose certain frameworks, all these things that we had to do. And I work, I wasn't building it out myself, like the team that I hired to, but because I was so in it, I learned an immense amount. Like
yeah.
now I'm like, I could be a software engineer. It's not that hard.
Are you gonna? Do you think you'll open it up to? Do you think you'll open it up to like courses on how Alex can become a software engineer or anything like that?
Yeah, it'll be not Analyst Builder, it'll be Software Engineer Builder.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be as offshoot.
Engineer builder. Yeah. There's a ton of I think the education space is wide open though, to be frank.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is it's not a zero sum game, right? Like just because you have your platform and courses doesn't mean
Yeah.
like, now you can't, a student can't check out other people's stuff. I mean, because there's enough. The thing is with a lot of us content creators and educators, we're all friends. It's like we all hang out and stuff and chat. So it's not like there's any animosity, whatever. So I think that's what's really cool about the space is everyone pushes each other forward. Like Ken has his retreats and stuff, and everyone goes and shows up, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I think it's a cool space. So yeah.
It is because, like you said, everyone. If I create a SQL course and you create a SQL course, it's not like it's either you or me. It's not like we're like battling each other. It's it's like, oh well, if you're looking for more data engineering SQL, hey, go to him.
Yeah.
Or I've recommended other people's courses that I just don't have or I think fit them better.
Yep.
And so it's so varied and so wide and so big that there's really room for everybody. And that's kind of like the YouTube space right now is, I'm one of the bigger ones, but there's so much room for new people. There's so much content that people are like really wanting. I can't create it all. So I'm really happy that there's a lot of new people creating these this new type of content that I just don't really cover. And that's how it should be. Like I can't do everything. You can't do everything. They can't do everything. But collectively, we can create a really great community around, the data space and be really inviting and opening and welcome. And I feel like the data YouTubers, a lot of the data analysts, data engineering, data science, they're really opening and welcome to newcomers. And it doesn't feel like a competition. It really doesn't.
Nah, definitely isn't.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, man. So,
I really appreciate having me on. I love doing these things. It's always fun to just chat.
It is fun. And try and make it out to I guess wherever everyone's meeting at this spring. So we'll see how that goes. But I'll put their links to Analyst Builder and everything in the show notes. But again, pleasure to chat with you as always. So
The pleasure's been mine. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. 1 second.